first question for each one of the panelists is, why is your path on building power the best perceived route for Muslims, and what is that path? So we'll start.
Again, thank you for having me. So I think that it meant a lot when, and I don't want to talk, how long do we have to? A minute, okay. So let me be really quick in sharing a story that I was content to be a really enthusiastic supporter of Dr. Cornel West for president. And then I got a call from Dr. West and his wife, Anahita, who's sitting here. And
Quick shout out for Cornel West wife Anahita that's here.
And they invited me to be Dr. West's running mate. And I was overwhelmed and wanted to immediately say yes. But we know that we don't make individual decisions, right? So I came to first my parents and my children, and then to my ummah and said, what should I do? And it was about advancing us as a people, advancing, and by community, I mean not just my Muslim community, but also my organizing community. And we understood this as an opportunity for us to uplift what justice means to us, for us to uplift a free Palestine, not just, an end to a ceasefire, right? We want an end to the occupation. We saw this as an opportunity to remind folks that Black people are still being killed by police. We saw this as an opportunity for us to say we have to invest in housing our folks and feeding our folks. And these are all things that we believe in. And so we decided that it would be a good idea for me to run. And it wasn't until I came to my imam and said, well, what do you think? That I was informed. It never occurred to me that I was the first Muslim on a presidential ticket. And I'll close just by saying this, that I take that as a tremendous honor, but also a tremendous responsibility. And I think one of the things that you're raising up when you're talking about this organization, Engage, and the way that they're completely betraying, in Black community, we say all skin folk and kinfolk, right? Mm-hmm. Same principle, right? That one of the things that holds us accountable is maintaining community together. So it's not just me running as vice president. It's all of us, so that if I misstep, you can pull me back and say, this is how we should be approaching this. And so this is why I think that's the best way forward, because even though there can only be 2 names on a ticket, which is, one of the confines of the electoral system in this country, right? We're all collectively engaged in a really people-powered movement to realize our electoral power and our overall power in this country and in the world.
So I'm going to kick it off to Bill real quick, and we'll keep it going. Bill, do you want to answer that question? Do you have the question?
Yeah, the question was, what is your path, and why is your path the most effective? So, I get you here. I go by Bill, but my name is Abdullah. I'm the son of Lebanese American immigrants. I'm the first Muslim ever elected to the California State Assembly at the state level. And I come from a background where I don't need other people speaking for me. I'll speak for myself. So I ran for office directly to be in a position of power, to be able to influence government and make decisions directly. So I believe that if our community wants to have real power, they have to get into positions of power to be able to influence the system. If you just look, for example, our Jewish brothers and sisters, the Jewish population in California, I think, is about 3%. Almost 15% of the state legislature is of Jewish descent. You have the Jewish caucus. So our community has no representation. I'm the first person ever elected to the state legislature from the Muslim community, ever, in the state of California. So if we want to have influence and power, we need to be in those positions, and I believe that's the path forward.
Thank you so much, Bill. Kameron?
Can y'all hear me? Yeah. Okay. Seems like it's on now. Okay. Well, let me hear you. Let me hear you say power. 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 I think that's a big focus of what we're talking about tonight is who has the power, who needs power, right? And I think that's the direction that I want to take this conversation. When I speak as a young person, let's look at the future that's being proposed by the existing system. A future where I can barely afford rent, let alone a house, right? Most of us have counted out that we'll ever have one, right? Yeah. A place where, you know, people are drowning in student debt, medical debt, utility debt, all of these different forms, right? A system where there is an ongoing genocide that is validated by all of the major media, all of the major parties. They always find excuses somehow for turning people into human bombs, pagers exploding, these horrible atrocities, right? But yet somehow it's supposed to be normalized. That's what they tell us. This is normal. They tell us that the constant murder of black people by the police is normal. They tell us that all of California's prisons being over capacity at this point is normal. Is this normal, folks? No. That's right. So that is why, you know, I decided to join the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I figured I should introduce myself. My name is Kameron. I'm an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation, which I joined in 2017. I was 20 years old, so if you do the math, that's about a quarter of my life dedicated to this organization, which, you know, I am very proud that it's a party of action, a party that was founded in 2004, leading the struggle against the war on Iraq, against the war on Afghanistan. And ever since, you'll see us in the streets, in the anti-war movement, in the movement against police brutality, against homelessness and these slumlords, right? These are all connected struggles. These are things that we bring together. And I will add that October 7th, we dropped a statement immediately, the day of. October 8th, we hit the streets with the people. I was in New York at the time, and it was powerful to see who decided to come out that day. You know, and many people joined in the weeks and the months coming after, but it was powerful to see that with this party of action that understands Palestinian liberation is a core element of our party. Palestinian liberation is something that we do not debate. It's not something that we compromise on, but we say, end the siege on Gaza, end every single dollar that's going to Israel. Put that money toward the people's needs. And I'll add that beyond that, even beyond that, we say shut down AFRICOM, shut down NATO. These are instruments of war. And we say shut down the over 800 military bases that crowd this world, that pollute this world. Cut the military budget by 90%, put that money toward the people's needs, right? And we can talk more about this, but you know, the way of how we get there, I believe that is the biggest conversation. That's what we want to talk about, building power. I actually think a huge amount of what I would say is actually represented on these cards. When we say base building, when we say training leaders, institution building, building alliances, organizing campaigns, I believe that is the route to victory. So I'm representing the Claudia and Karina campaign. They're two amazing working class mothers. You know, they're out here dedicated. They've been organizers for 20, 30 years of their lives. So they're out here not just for an election, not just to get your vote, but in order to say that we deserve better than what Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney have supported, as they've now decided to side with Kamala Harris. So the people who destroyed Iraq, who destroyed Afghanistan, now are backing Kamala Harris. That's not something we can accept, so we believe that building power starts with community organizing. So we say, yes, vote Socialist in 2024, but we don't just want your vote, we want you to join the movement for justice around the world.
A couple things. So thank you for being here. I cannot wait till this is bigger than a Juma. If we talk about a system, real quick, just a small correction to what you had said, brother. The system is normal that you described because the intenders of who made it want it that way. That's right. So it is a normal system for the people who made it. That's the only different perspective on it. It's
Same perspective.
It's running how they intended it.
Same perspective.
Okay, so let's get that out of the way first.
Yes.
Okay, and Assemblymen, let's not erase our own people and forget your sister in the upper house, Aisha Wahab. So you were duly elected to her, at the same time. So you are one of the other Muslims that was elected 2 years ago, and thank you for your accomplishments. So real quick, we can't erase our own people, can we? Right? It's being done to us right now. Okay. So is my path the right one forward? So I think we need, if you look at any movement of anyone who's ever existed inside the United States, okay? There's always been people who've been inside the building, people who've been outside the building, people who can walk through the front door, people who can walk through the front door. I was trying to look at the date, and I'm a big fan of youth. And Peter Tosh in his song 400 Years talked about when the first African slave came to the Americas in 1916. The system has been here since the very beginning, the way it's been started. Okay? We are all now, I think, in what Rastafarians would call Babylon. We are all part of an Anglo-Saxon system, and that is the norm for what every American has tried to come into this country to be a part of in some various way or form. That's how you are accepted in society, if you fall into that mode. There is an amazing article by the New York Times called How Italians Became White. This idea of white, black, these are all constructs, okay? So it's been a moving thing. People within our community now, because they've made some financial success, now think they're white. But we got to remind ourselves that they are not white. They are Muslim. At the end of the day, when the Anglo-Saxon Protestant people don't need them any longer, they're going to sell them up the river just like any other. You see the same parallel in the Latino community right now. You see lots of Latinos supporting Donald Trump. Now I can tell you this about the Democratic Party. Right around since maybe 1932, when FDR came to power, for the most part, the Democrats have been fighting for the person who is on the bottom. Not always, but we were reminded that this isn't completely true after what happened with Palestine after October 7th. We know that we are not seen as human beings. That is the only reason why they can do this to our people. Okay, Judith Butler, does anyone know who she is?
Yeah.
Okay, Judith Butler, look at her, okay? She is a gay activist, Dr. Assemblyman. She is not evil, she's not there. And then real quick, I got to say this about the LGBTQ community. They don't want you to be gay. They're not trying to make your kids gay in public schools. I can probably say that anyone who's been on the front lines fighting for Palestine, you probably had someone who was gay who was right next to you, okay? So we got to need to look into this I want to get into the questions that examine our own stereotypes about other people. I wish we could talk about the Arab-Black divide. I don't know where this community is going, but I want to do some soul searching within our own community, because the only way to build power is to start looking in the mirror about who you are.
Joe, just specifically on this question.
And so that's what I got. That's it, no more.
Does this mean you're voting Democrat?
I am voting Democrat.
All right. So
But you didn't say, am I voting Democrat for president?
well, what are we talking about? Fair enough. So let's get into this.
Sorry, voting for Democrat.
Here we go. So I just say we're going. All right, so let's get into the next question then. And thank you, Joe. You are going to get the first question, and then Bill, you'll get the next. Really, the way this is going to work, by the way, not all questions are for all candidates. We're going to ask a question. It might be for two of the candidates, and the next question might be for the other two, all right? Just so we're all on the same page. And so each candidate has a minute 30 to respond, and then our boss or myself might have a 30-second follow-up with another question, all right? Just to keep us on our toes. So, Joe, we've had Muslims in the DNC for a long time. Delegates, DNC members, we've had them in those positions for a long time. And even if you disagree with that, we've had Muslims right up the Democratic parties, in the Democratic Party for quite some time now. What has that given us?
Okay, so let's contextualize the long, right? Okay. So I believe Keith Ellison was elected to be the first Muslim congressman who took a swearing on the Jeffersonian Bible, I believe in 2008. Okay? Or maybe a little earlier than that, but I think it was around 2008. That's the first time I ever heard of Keith Ellison, maybe 2010. Okay, so to say long, I mean, you're under 40 probably, so less than even a quarter of your life. So this idea that Muslims have held positions of power within the Democratic Party, I think, is a big misnomer. Okay, Mervet can say this with me. She's a Democratic state party delegate. Okay, right now I believe there are 5. I asked my colleague Nadia Ahmad today. She's my other counterpart at the DNC, and I believe there's only 4. I think Faiz, what's the guy's name who ran Bernie's campaign, and maybe 2 other Muslims. There's maybe 5 Muslim DNC members out of a body of 456 members, I believe. So we make up less than 435, like Congress. It's yeah, and then we have 3 members in the House. We have Andre Carson, we got Sister Rashida, and Ilhan Omar. So there are currently 3 Muslims in the U.S. House of Congress. Okay, so this idea that Muslims have been in positions of power in the Democratic Party is a big misnomer. We may know them because we get to see them at fundraisers and we talk to them on a daily basis. Maybe we oversimplify their existence in the party. Okay, there's been Arabs like James Zogby, who is not Muslim. He's a Christian, and James, he was one of the only few early Arab activists in the DNC. But as far as Muslims, there's not even a Muslim caucus in the DNC, and so it's our influence on the party. We might have a bigger influence in the state party, where we were able to pass it with the work of Mervet and some other activists from our Jewish community, that we passed probably the most progressive resolution ceasefire now just seems so outdated, right? Now it's about save the Middle East because Netanyahu wants to take out everyone. So to answer your question, man, I don't. What was the question?
I'm trying to what has our involvement in the Democratic Party yielded? And putting delegates aside, we've had hundreds of staffers in the Democratic Party.
Okay.
Remember, you stand up just because.
Yeah. So what is this? What does this garner the community? What has it gotten us now? Obviously nothing, except for a few people whispering in the ears of people who are influences. On Palestine, it's gotten us nothing, right? I mean, the bombs haven't stopped. The bombs are now going to other countries, and the war machine moves on. So I think but that's from any political party. I'll just answer that right now. We found out that we as a community have no political power. As far as, I can tell you the broken relationships that have happened in the Inland Empire with congressmen who we've given millions of dollars to over the last couple of years, and people cannot even return a phone call now. So don't believe your money's going to save you if you're rich.
Thanks, John. All right, Assemblymember Bill Essayli, same question to you. We've seen what 4 years of Trump's looks like, for Muslims in the United States and abroad. What has Trump as a president done for Muslims in the 4 years that he was in power?
Well, I can tell you what he hasn't done. He hasn't started a war. Under President Trump, we didn't have any war. We weren't in war in Ukraine. Gaza wasn't getting involved. West Bank wasn't getting involved. Lebanon wasn't getting involved. In fact, if you look objectively at Donald Trump's presidency, he escalated conflict. You have to understand that the government operates a lot of times independent of these electeds. They have their own agenda. And I remember distinctly there was one point in time they wanted Trump to go to war with Iran because I believe a plane or something got shot down, and they tried to blame Iran and they wanted to go to war. He resisted and said no. Trump pulled our troops out of Syria and de-escalated the conflict there. He did that against his chosen person to run the Department of Defense. In fact, that general resigned because Trump made the decision to withdraw out of Syria. Look, Trump's not perfect. I'm not saying any political party is perfect. But my message to the community today is going to be do not be beholden to any political party. Zero. Whether it's Democrat, Republican, Independent, make them earn your vote. What I'm tired of seeing is a political party that thinks they own the community. Whether it's the Muslim community or the black community, they don't own anybody. And if you look at their actions, you want to talk about caucuses. So yeah, me and Aisha Wahab were the first Muslims elected to the California legislature. I'm in the Assembly, she's in the Senate. First day I asked, can we have a Muslim caucus? You know what they said? They said no, because we don't do religious caucuses. I said, well, what's the caucus? Well, that's ethnic, it's not religious. So these are the types of games and antics. We talk about bills too. I sponsored the MENA bill. You know, right now, the Middle Eastern, North African community does not get represented in the census. We don't have a bubble to check. So I proposed a bill to give us that category. The Democrat Party killed the bill. So, you know, it comes down to who can we work with. I don't think we're ever going to seize power of any political organization. We're just not big enough of a population. But who can we work with? And I know who I can.
And Assembly Bill, just to follow up on this. So Trump has been historically like the worst for Muslims here in the U.S. and abroad. So in just here, let me finish this real fast. So in the first 6 months of Trump's presidency alone, he dropped more bombs on Afghanistan in the last 2 years of Obama's presidency. Moving the capital to Jerusalem, in many eyes, was the impetus for a lot of what's happened with the normalization with the Abraham Accords and the impetus of what's happened on October 7th. Trump's Muslim ban was historically demonizing of the Muslim community. The rhetoric that came out of that demonized the Muslim community. In his first 2 years, there were more Muslims put on the no-fly list than in previous presidencies. So I just feel like there's some further clarification needed on what a Republican in power can do for or has done for Muslims.
I think this is a much longer conversation. I think the Muslim ban was something fabricated by the media. It was not a Muslim ban. Hold on a second.
Folks,
I got the law to respond. I don't know. Listen, my whole family's Muslim. I didn't have one family member that was denied entry to the United States or not able to immigrate. There were certain countries that were put on a list where we could not confirm people's identity. Put that aside. The bombing in Afghanistan, you're talking about ISIS. You remember ISIS? ISIS, which was a terrorist organization. That thing was created. Well, let me finish. That thing was created and evolved under the Obama administration. Trump took over, he dismantled ISIS. We've never heard of ISIS again. What I know is my grandma's at the clear hometown Lebanon. She's now a refugee. My dad had to fly out 2 days ago in the middle of the night out of Lebanon. Their homes or their villages are being bombed. That did not happen under President Trump. That happened under President Biden. Gaza was not being bombed. On the issue of Jerusalem, we have to have peace negotiations. And Trump has always said that Palestine, if it can become a state, would have an opportunity to have their capital.
thank you, Assembly. Thank you.
It's a much bigger conversation.
Thank you. And just to fact check that, ISIS was not in Afghanistan. They never were. And that's a fact. And just a note for the audience, we love you dearly. All right, we're going to give them some respect to finish their point of view, even if we adamantly bore what they're saying, regardless of anybody on the panel. With respect to all of them. All right, our boss.
All right. So
Next question.
the next question for Dr. Melina and then Kameron. What happened post-November with a third party?
So I'm going to stand up too. Dr. West and I have been doing organizing work for decades, right? We see this election as an opportunity to sharpen one of the tools in our toolbox, not as the end all be all, right? No oppressed people have ever voted themselves into freedom. So it's really important to understand that while we are engaging and doing all we can to use our electoral power, we know that that's not the primary power for oppressed people. Our primary power is organizing work. So I've been engaging in organizing work all of my life, and it's really important that we continue to organize. This is a point, what's the word that an inflection point, right? It's an inflection point where we can say, all right, let's uplift our agenda right now. But it doesn't end November 5th. November 6th, we really, really double and triple down. right? We have to remember, and anything can happen. Dr. West has made me be much more open and hopeful and prayerful than I've ever been, because he always says anything can happen November 5th. We don't know what will happen to Trump or to Kamala Harris. We don't know what will happen. We don't know who will actually win that election. We don't know. But in some ways, it doesn't even matter, because what we're building right now is people power. We're building a movement. We're pouring into a movement that extends beyond us, that is far before us, and that will continue after us for the sake of our children and our people and future generations. So what we're asking everybody to do right now is see this as an organizing opportunity. We all have to absolutely flex our electoral power, right? We want you to vote, and I'm going to be real clear. Do not vote for Donald Trump, who is the embodiment of white supremacist, patriarchal, heteronormative capitalism. He is the embodiment of evil. Do not vote for him. But also, our faith tells us, don't vote for the lesser of two evils either. Either. I choose. You know, if my last name is Abdullah, it means humble servant of God, right? I choose to be a humble servant of God. And what does God require of us? What does Allah demand of us? It is to do, one of the 99 names of Allah is to do the work of justice. So who represents justice? Vote for that. Vote for that. And that doesn't mean genocide heavy, and it doesn't mean genocide light. It doesn't mean oppression heavy, and it doesn't mean oppression with a smile. It means freedom and justice and love. Truth, justice, and love is our campaign platform. So we have to do that work up through November 5th, and more importantly, beyond November 5th.
Cameron?
So, folks, I mean, I think it was very well said that at the end of the day, none of this stops on November 5th. And I think the best example that I can give, which is within my history of political organizing, is going back to 2020. And I want to remind everyone, you know, it's been a long time. There's so many things that have popped off since then. But, you know, when we saw that election brewing, right, it was such an odd election. I don't know if folks remember that. But we had been in the streets throughout 2019, throughout 2020, leading up until the election. And then what I remember is that the people were in the streets, they were mobilized, they were ready to fight. And then once the election results were settled, so much of that movement dissipated, right? And it's not anyone's fault that's here in this room, but it was a constant pressure, particularly in my case from the Democratic Party, that was saying, go back home, it's all settled. Don't worry about the martyrs. Don't worry about the people that you lost in 2020. Don't worry about any of them. Because guess what? Joe Biden's going to fix things for us. And you know what happens each and every time that a progressive or a Democrat gets elected? There's always this cooling period because it's like, let's give them 100 days. Let's give them some time. So, okay, he got a little bit of time. And what did he decide to do? 1, fail on his promise to raise the minimum wage. 2, fail on his promise to cancel student debt up to $10,000. 3, fail on basically any other promise that came with Build Back Better, right? He abandoned it, and they always have a political circus to say it was this 1 or 2 Democrats that failed it from happening. But those were things we needed. Free community college, you know, free childcare. These were very powerful things, but guess what? The Democratic Party cannot get us there. They have proven time and time again that they may be great at giving speeches out there. They may be great at saying that they're going to commit to certain actions, but then somehow their hands are always tied. Somehow Obama had to destroy an African nation, and it wasn't his fault, is what we're told. We're told that it was somehow someone else's fault. So what I want to say today is that, yes, this work continues afterwards. I want to say that our work is one that is not tied to a 4-year election cycle, and then you're going to see us disappear. You're not going to see us then reappear a year before the election. But I joined this party in 2017 because I was disgusted by what happened in the 2016 election, where we saw, you know, at the time I was very convinced Bernie Sanders' path and that platform was going to lead to some real justice. Folks, it didn't happen. for many reasons, and part of it being that the Democratic Party sabotaged him, but another part being he wasn't ready to step out and make a powerful independent movement. He wanted to stay connected. So look, we understand that this struggle for universal healthcare, housing and healthcare and education for all, this struggle to end the siege on Gaza, this struggle to correct many of these wrongs, is something that has nothing to do with who gets elected. Actually, in fact, what we want to say is that no matter whether it's a Democrat or a Republican that's in the White House, we are going to be out there. We're going to be protesting until we win a new system. And folks, we are the Party for Socialism and Liberation. That's why I want to say socialism is the path that we're talking about. And by that, we mean that the power is in the hands of the people. It's not in the hands of the corporations, the billionaires, the same ones who drive us into these wars every single time. We are fighting for a new system.
So with that, we have to ask the tough questions too, right? So one of the most common things, to follow up on both of your answers, is that anytime you have a third party, the third party benefits Bill. It benefits the Republican Party in a lot of ways. In the elections in swing states and other places, when you vote third party, you almost take votes away from Democrats. That's a common thing that's being said. How do you navigate that morally, or you just even strategically, when you're thinking that, okay, I'm gonna get all these people that vote typically Democrat, and now today, they vote for us and taking away votes from the Dems and giving it to the Republicans. So it's almost like, they're not as bad, or Trump is not as bad because we're okay with giving him that victory. So how do we navigate that?
Okay, so I would love to address this. So it's really important that we remember that nobody owns our vote. Nobody owns our vote. The Democrats don't own our vote. And so it is not their vote. There's no such thing as stealing a vote because the vote doesn't belong to them, right? It's also important that we remember that there are people, many of us among them, who would never, ever, ever, ever vote for genocide. We ain't voting for Donald Trump, and we're not voting for Joe Biden and now Kamala Harris, right? So that wasn't going to happen. I'm the mother of a 20-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 14-year-old. But my 20-year-old and she just turned 18. My 20-year-old and my 18-year-old, I can forget her age because she just turned 18 on September 20th, right? But this will be both of their first presidential election. They would have never voted for either of the major two parties, right? So they would have either stayed at home or voted only down ballot. And what we're finding, political science had, is that most folks who vote for third party were voting like my children would have voted. They would have either stayed home or voted only down ballot. So that's, again, solidifying the argument that there's no such thing as stealing votes, right? But the third thing, if you want to be completely pragmatic, is we all live in California. Y'all didn't drive here from Arizona, right? We all live in California. So you have tremendous opportunity to completely blow that argument out of the water, because this state is going to go blue, and if it doesn't, I owe you $1, right? So there's no such thing as giving away the vote to Trump, because this is people who say that have no understanding of how the electoral system works, right? So talk to everybody that you know about voting their vision, not their fear. Voting their vision, not their fear. Don't let them scare you into thinking that voting righteously and morally is somehow giving the election away to evil, right? It's really important that we vote our vision, not our fear. And then the last thing I'll say, and you kind of made this point a bit, Joe, is what we're finding, and we don't have money for polling, right? So I'm just going to say the anecdotal information that we get from sitting out and asking people to vote for Cornel West and Melina Abdullah is we're actually stealing a lot of votes from Trump, right? Because there's this misunderstanding of the support that Trump is getting from, or supposed support that Trump is getting from people of color, from Muslims, that they're voting for Trump. Many of our folks are saying that the Trump vote is a protest vote to the Democratic Party. And when we say there is another option, you don't like where Kamala Harris stands on reparations, on genocide, the fact that she took $5.5 million from AIPAC? Okay, vote for Cornel West, right? And so we're actually finding that especially black voters are willing to do that. And so it's important that we understand that as well. So I'm sorry for the long answer, but I wanted to make sure that we explain it in ways that we can go out and explain it to everybody else that we touch.
Dr. Abdullah, just to follow up on that, if you don't mind. So, common, again, this is a bit of a tough question. A common argument is we've seen from a lot of the polling lately that the Muslim community outside of Trump and Harris, they're going third-party Jill Stein. And that the third-party Jill Stein support is much more than third-party any other support down ballot. A lot of community questions that I've heard is, why is West Abdullah still in the race? Given that they could potentially support a Jill Stein third-party movement, bolster this 5% cap that everybody keeps talking about, that if we hit this magic 5%, then all sorts of unicorns will pop up next election cycle. Can you comment on that?
Sure. So our platform is truth, justice, and love. And I've said that, I've said publicly that we're not running against anyone. We're running against genocide. We're running against the expansion of the criminal and prison industrial complex, military industrial complex. We're running for truth, justice, and love. So I'm saying that to say that I don't want to get into bashing any party, but we want to be a clean glass of water. We want to say, do you believe in what we stand for? And we encourage you all to go to our policy pillars and see what it is we stand for. I want to also dismiss this idea that you have to vote for who the most viable candidate is, because when you do that, then if you get down that road, then you might as well vote for the Democratic Party, right? If you go all the way down that road, then you're locked back into a corporate-owned duopoly. And so vote your vision, not your fear. And so that's why we say we're going to stay in it. And Dr. West has assured me that we're going to stay in it until the wheels fall off. We are running, and we're running till November 5th, but we're also running beyond November 5th.
Yeah, folks. I mean, it's very comforting for me that our brother Malcolm X, El-Hajj Malik Al-Shabazz, is up here, because he said, of all our studies, history is the one that's best positioned to reward our research. We have to look at our history. We have to understand this history. I'll add on that our brother W.B. Du Bois, one of the things he added was that, in fact, and he's talking in the 1950s, we may have two different names of parties, but there is one evil behind it. And I think that is incredibly fair. The words of those two brothers I mentioned, they last into today. They echo into today. And I just want to challenge that. Absolutely. Our votes are not owned by any of these two big corporate parties. I think there are many people who say, I am disgusted by genocide. I do not support genocide. Who stand for reparations for all black people. Who stand for the reparations and the end of the colonial relationship that the United States has with countries all over the world. In fact, I want to add full rights for all immigrants. And that means that we demand unionization. We demand an end to this predatory relationship that the United States has with places all over the world. We say end the sanctions from Cuba to Venezuela to Iran, all over the world. End the sanctions, stop the war. And I also want to add that if with hundreds of millions of dollars, some of the biggest corporations, biggest celebrities in the world, if the Democrats can't win on their own, I believe that's their fault entirely. I believe that when they have this whole apparatus, they get to talk to millions of viewers on CNN. They always got to pass to get on CNN, Fox News. That's very hard. Yes, very hard to get a socialist party up there. Why? I mean, if the Democrats and the Republicans are so confident, then they should be inviting third parties to be on the stage. And in fact, if we had a functioning democracy where there was a parliament, where in fact, based on how many votes you got a percentage of House or seats in the House. we would have a completely different system where you would have socialists up there, you would have greens up there, you would have all sorts of people, and we would see how that would change. But remember, that slight correction, this was founded in order to make sure that, if anything, two parties stayed in power. If anything, that capital stayed in power. And we understand that when we're told every single time, this is the most important election, we have to defend democracy. Defend democracy. I want to ask each and every one of you, what democracy are we defending? Are we talking about the democracy where you can buy elections? The democracy where no matter how many millions of people hit the streets, they're going to keep funding genocide? A type of democracy where no matter how many people have a public opinion against something, it's money that rules politics. That's what we're standing against, and that's what we're saying we are going to run. We're going to keep this campaign going, and we're going to pull people to say that any direction other than the one that the Democrats and Republicans are going to be leading us may be viable, but it's a socialist direction that this country desperately, desperately needs.
All right. All right. Are we ready for the next question? All right. Here we go. We're going to stick with Dr. Abdullah and Kameron on this one again. So how can we bridge the divide that we've seen between Black and Arab Muslim communities when it comes to what matters this election? We've seen in very specific scenarios, literally 4 people that are part of the, sorry to keep harping on Gage here, but the Salima Saswell and Black Muslims for Harris group. There's about 6 of them total, and that's created another divide in the Muslim community. We've seen a lot of the Black liberal community go out really hard against issues that are pro-Palestinian. Anyways, I'll leave it up in that. We'll chat about that.
I'll just say thank you so much. The core principle of the Party for Socialism and Liberation is international solidarity among the working class of people anywhere that you live, right? So that means the people who are struggling to survive here, in the Congo, in Sudan, in Palestine, in Korea, have much more in common with each other than with the billionaires and the millionaires on Wall Street, in the Pentagon, the oil CEOs. We have nothing in common with those people. So while I will say, you can take any set of people and find divisions between them. There are issues, we always hear, there's Black and Mexican issues, there's Black and Indigenous issues, Black and Arab issues. All of these things must be worked out in community among the working class. That is what we say. We say that it is when people band together, have open dialogue about these things, because guess what? We're all catching hell. We're all getting attacked by the same beast. That beast that's known as imperialism, that's known as capitalism. And guess what? If we sit here and we say, it's happening all the way over there, what does that have to do with me? 1, sucking all of the resources and funds away from our people, putting it toward a machine of death that is known as the Zionist regime that is known as Israel. In fact, we saw that FEMA, in the midst of this horrible Hurricane Helene, $9 billion shortfall. And what did they send to this war for the war machine? $8.7 billion. When we look at Katrina, let's take it back to Hurricane Katrina. We were too busy annihilating Iraq and Afghanistan. Why? Because the oil CEOs wanted it, and because Dick Cheney, now a big supporter of Kamala Harris, because they orchestrated this to happen. That is exactly why we ended up in that situation.
Sure. So I think the question is about bridging the divide between Black and Arab Muslims. Is that right? So I want to first share what my experience has been in this incredible journey of running for vice president of the United States with Dr. West. The first invitation that I received was an invitation from Arab Muslims in the Bay Area to come speak. I didn't realize it was an Arab Muslim organization. So I came into Islam through my marriage in 2002 and had been mostly in Black Muslim community. My daughter My oldest daughter was a part of was raised in the Muslim youth group in the Islamic Center, but beyond that, we hadn't really been involved in community other than Black Muslim community. And so I got this invitation, did not realize it was an Arab Muslim organization, and I walk into this room that's about double the size of this one, and there's about 300 Arab Muslims, all Arab in the room. The only 3 Black people were me, my brother, and my security, right? And I didn't know how to act. I didn't know how to respond. There's been this divide in community where many times that I talked to my spirit child, Sierra Leone, and asked if she had this experience as well, where I feel like a lot of times our faith is questioned if we're Black, but we're the plurality of Muslims in this country, right? So this was my first time walking into a room filled with Arab Muslims who embraced me, and especially Muslim women who said that you mean something. You being there means something to us. And so I think we have tremendous opportunity for us to move forward, recognizing that there are things that are different. I don't want to just erase who I am as a Black woman, right? I don't want to erase the particularity of our experiences, but also what brings us together under our commitment to justice. And we have an opportunity in this moment to really double down on what it means to be people of faith, what it means to be Muslim, how we move ourselves forward, how we not just believe in our hearts and speak with our mouths, but actually do the work of justice. And I think that we can do that with this election, and I think that we can do that beyond this election by really building real solidarity, and I see that happening now. Mm-hmm.
Joe, I think you wanted to answer the question as well.
Yeah. As far as being, I'm half Mexican, half white, and the idea is, how do we get past these color differences that we have within our own community? So, brothers in the room, when a Black man comes to marry your daughter and asks for her hand in marriage, or if she's gay, she's going to tell you, "Hey, Papa, we gotta confront these things." Accept them. They become Muslim. They become Muslim. So don't. But many of the Muslims that I know, my background, and you were at the Islamic Center of Vermont, right, with Dr. Maher. God bless him, his memory. That's how I came to Islam. And we really got to stop associating. And our community has been acculturated by what I go back to that Anglo-Saxon Protestant idea. It's and let me just back up a little bit on what you had to say, if you don't mind. We can riff. We're gonna do a jam together. Okay. It's not just, and this isn't your narrative, but socialists just focus on the money class. If anyone in here a fan of Game of Thrones, and I'll relate this to what I'm about to say. No, there's no one who's ever watched the show Game of Thrones. Okay, so right there, the reason why we don't have power as a community is because we haven't watched Game of Thrones. Right there, that solves everything. And at the end of Game of Thrones, Tyrion Lannister, the short guy, he says the most powerful thing on the face of the planet is what? What is the sunnah? Excuse me, sister. Huh? But what is the sunnah? What is the sunnah? No, what is the sunnah? It is a story that we all believe in. We all draw something from it, justice, mercy, love, whatever it may be. But it's the power of a story. What do people say that we believe in? What narrative are we believing in? So this idea about getting together with the immigrant, we're all immigrants here, first of all, right? Some of us were brought here forcibly. Okay, no. Okay. Yeah, no. Thank you for that correction. Okay, but let's start examining the stories that we tell ourselves and the stories that we continue to believe as an ummah. Does that make sense? Yes. And listen to our black brothers and sisters, because they've been surviving and thriving for this country for 400 years. And the people who have come here for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years have a lot to learn. The people who've been here 8 times as long as our Desi and Arab brothers. Okay? Thank you.
Did you want to answer that too, Bill?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, my take on this is a little different. I believe very strongly in the foundation belief of the American dream, which is we are all born with rights given to us by God, and among those rights are the rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And under the eyes of the law, we are all equal. And I know that's not always how it plays out, and that's not always been everyone's experience, but that is the vision statement, if you will, or what we strive through in this country. I love the metaphor, the analogy that Dr. King used in his speech, which is America wrote a promissory note to guarantee this equality to every American, every person. And it hasn't always been able to cash that check or to see it through, but that is the idealism that I believe in and I believe we work towards. And so I've always lived my life, from when I was very young, my parents have always instilled in me that color is not, is frankly irrelevant when it comes to a person's character, their values, and everyone is equal. So I have to be honest, when I grew up, it was, we didn't emphasize people's backgrounds and their colors. It was everyone's equal. I know today's it's a little different where, I think people sort of lead with that, or we're not trying to minimize people's backgrounds and their history, but I think there's a little bit more emphasis on it now than it was before. But I really believe the way we get there is by treating everyone equally with respect and value, and having a free marketplace of ideas where people can compete in. And I do believe everyone should have an equal opportunity to compete for every opportunity. I think the big difference you're going to see here between the parties and us is how we get there. And I think a lot of people believe that government is going to be the solution to our problems, that government's somehow going to legislate or dictate that. I don't believe that. I think it's going to come from the individuals, it's going to come from culture, it's going to come from society, and it's not something that I think you can legislate. So I'm very much against growing government and giving government more power to impose its will over people, and more about liberating people and giving them authority and power over their own lives.
Thank you, Bill.
So, just a different take on it.
It sounds like you don't see color.
Well, I don't want to say we don't see color, because obviously people are different and they have different backgrounds. My point is that doesn't define you and your capabilities.
Great.
So I don't want to say I don't see color, because I think that's very disrespectful to people, but I just want to say it doesn't define you. And I think right now there's an attitude that if you are a certain color, if you're from a certain background, you almost cannot succeed, or it's stacked against you. And I fear that it's making some people feel like they are not able to pursue the same opportunities as others. So I don't ever want to discourage people from being ambitious or doing that. I do realize that depending on where you come from, you're going to have certain advantages or not, but it should not stop you or discourage you or disadvantage you.
Hey, Bill, we're going to stick with you for a bit on this next question. So how can you justify as a Muslim, and this is kind of an important question for the audience, because this is a who should Muslims vote for, and this is a Muslim visionaries. And so as a proud Muslim, I feel like my religion is the perfect religion, and I'm a Muslim because I feel like it is better than anything else out there. And so in that same vein, all right, how can you justify as a Muslim aligning with a political party? And this question's for you and Joe specifically. Given that the Republican Party has taken a very hard right, aligning themselves with evangelicals, I mean, at their core, Zionism, at their core, very stringent racist ideology, and for you, Joe, the hard left liberal. Again, you've brought up LGBT community, which is something that the Muslim community here, many community members have a very hard time reconciling with, and specifically transgender rights, specifically the curriculum and what's happening in education. Many in the Muslim community are fearful of how far left the education system and how far left the Democratic Party is going, and how far left progressivism is going. So, Bill, we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, that's obviously a very loaded question. I think there's a lot of assumptions in your question that deserve to be challenged. But with that said, I think the question is, how do I align with the Republican Party? Well, I think you have to align yourself with a party. Okay, I don't believe in everything the Republican Party necessarily stands for, but I think the question is, and I respect Dr. Abdullah there, because the question is, do you go with a new party and do you start a new movement, or do you go within a party and try to reform or influence the party from within? And I think that's a fair question, and I think reasonable people can come to different decisions. My decision has been to enter the Republican Party and try to influence it from within instead of externally. And I'll tell you, it's had a lot of success. I mean, a lot of Republicans I interact with, electeds and otherwise, they've never interacted with a Muslim before. I have to tell you, I sat with an evangelical leader, and the first question he had to me was, is it okay that a woman is with us in the room? And I just was stunned at that question. But I had to realize at some point it's totally out of ignorance. So I think one of the best ways to change people's perceptions about any community is to just interact with them and let them actually see people who are Muslims and try to bring that fear down. So I just think to answer your question, I believe the Republican Party at the end of the day represents the principles and values that align with my values and my faith, which again is predominantly that the individual is responsible for managing the affairs of their life and their family and not the government. So that basic fundamental principle.
Bill, I'm going to give you a quick follow-up, if you don't mind.
Party and not the Democrat Party.
I'm going to give you a quick follow-up, Bill. So I feel like a lot of discussions within the Muslim community have kind of questioned the Republican Party's strategy towards Muslims. Muslims and Republicans kind of align a lot of conservative moral values. They align on a lot of business individuality values. They've aligned on multiple kind of values that the Republican Party's, even Judeo-Christian values on a religious level, Muslims align with the Republican Party's on. Why is the Republican Party specifically ousted the Muslim community and not only just ousted them from any engagement, but attacked them both domestically and internationally, rather than see them as a potential voter and donor base?
I honestly have no idea what you're talking about. I've never been ousted or attacked by anyone in the Republican Party, but to your point, you've never really engaged the Arab and Muslim community because they've never seen value in earning that vote. I think this year is different because they're looking at Michigan. And for the first time, it appears that the Arab or Muslim community is going to have an effect in a swing state in the state of Michigan. I just saw a poll that the majority of Arabs now in Michigan are going to support Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. Now, there's something very important happening in the Republican Party. There is a civil war. There's a civil war between the neocons, the warmongers, the Dick Cheneys, the Liz Cheneys, the George Bushes of the world, versus the new Republicans, which is, we don't want to be in endless wars. We don't want to fund these wars. You see the Trump, the MAGA, if you will, they don't want to fund the war in Ukraine. They don't want to be part of these endless wars and send their friends and families over to die over there. There is a struggle happening in the Republican Party, and I believe that we can be a part of that influencing the outcome.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill. Joe, so same question for you. How can you justify as a Muslim aligning with the values of a political platform that is just seemingly continuously going left and as far left as can be?
This is something that's and oh, a minute 30. Okay, I have problems with deadlines. Okay, real quick, I got to get this LGBT thing question out of the answer this in my perspective. Okay, so first of all, if someone has a problem with someone who's LGBTQ, that's fine. We're here to vote our conscience, whatever it may be. But and I'm going to put my Imam Joe hat on real quick. How many times is pride and idolatry mentioned in the Quran versus someone being gay? Don't answer that question because you know it's more than. And every time a man looks at a woman, he goes, "Oh man, mashallah." You're sinning as much as someone who is gay. So for you to sit there and condemn somebody who is gay is check yourself first. Okay? No, for someone who might be gay, the person who's saying they're gay, but they're probably looking at a girl. They have their own sin. No. They shouldn't be condemning if they. No. I don't think they're sinning if they're gay. No. But they don't understand what the nature of sin is, because there's so many other things that are talked about within the Quran when they have their own sins to even worry about. The gay people are, and again, they don't want to make your family gay. They don't. The curriculum. I'm a teacher, and the curriculum talks about all people. Okay, it's if you know anything about the history of ethnic studies in California, Muslims and the Palestinians were erased from the curriculum. Okay, that came down to a vote in the Assembly. Okay, and so we have to embrace all people. I think the best form we have, an example for a pluralistic society, is early Medina, when the Prophet was living alongside Jewish people, pagan people. And did he make anyone change their religion or their faith? No, he left people alone. Within Medina, okay? Am I wrong? Does someone want to correct me on that? And so, I think Governor Walz said it best when he said, "It's none of your damn business." Okay, it's none of your damn business. And anyone who's done justice work, if your rights are going to be violated, they're going to eventually violate your rights. Okay, so if you go on other people's rights, they're going to be coming for you next, and it's just going to be a matter of when they get to you. So that's the way I look at this whole thing about becoming too progressive. We either be for all people or for no people. Okay, I really do feel that, no matter what demographic they may have. Sorry for the 5-minute answer.
Boz, do you have a follow-up?
So I think we had a question earlier about Kamala. Did we address that one? No? Good. Joe, we want to hear your perspective on the election. We got Kamala running for office. Are you going to vote for her this year?
So I will be voting for Kamala Harris I will be. In 2024. I haven't got my ballot yet, but I will as soon as I get it.
You're very deep, man. You're putting everyone's minds in different directions.
That's okay. And if I would have known you earlier, brother. So there's 28, and so in general, I agree with 90% of what the Democratic Party stands for. Does the obliteration of Palestine and what's going to be happening in Lebanon, we're just seeing the beginning of it. Man, and as soon as we go into Iran, I think Netanyahu is going to run the whole table on this one. I really do see it happening. So I am not okay with that. I was one of the only people at the DNC who did an action. I have publicly, if you see my social media, I've called for a ceasefire from the very beginning. I've been against it, but she's still getting my vote because on everything else that I believe in housing and labor rights, LGBTQ rights, immigrant rights, I believe the administration is going to do the right thing.
Joe, we're going to stick with you for just 1 sec on this issue now. So real quick, Joe. So
You can press it. I don't know if I'm going to walk out of here. You get to press it off.
all right. So Democrats. Thank you so much. So Democrats have full control of California. Full control, up and down. Homelessness is still out of control. Housing has been a crisis for the past 30 years in California. The Democrats seemingly run on these issues every single year, and none of them have been fixed. Public schools are dismayed. Charter schools have basically propped up everywhere because the education system in California has been absolute trash, even though funding with property has increased. Taxes through property has increased. And so you'd think funding is going to public schools. So, Joe, the Democrats have full control. yet seemingly they haven't really been able to accomplish any of their agenda items here in California. Your comment.
Okay, so I got a minute 30. Okay, I'll try to spend 20 seconds on each. On housing. Housing is such a complicated issue, man. They say it's a supply issue. It's not a supply issue. And I am of the agreement that the rent's too damn high. People probably in this room are probably benefiting from that. We want to talk about profiteers. So there's war profiteers, there's housing profiteers. And so I don't know if you can squarely put that on the hands of the Democrats. Homelessness started with the closing by Ronald Reagan of all the mental health facilities, man, in 1988. Now we're just seeing more of it, right? And so
People don't have mental illness until they're unhoused for 3 days. Most of them are not mentally ill.
But the activists I talked to who were down on Skid Row said that started. They saw more people, but then it started going other places. Yes.
The vast majority of them can't pay rent. It's not that they have addiction issues or mental health issues.
Okay, I believe that and agree with you. And so this narrative that Democrats are in charge. This to me is a Republican tagline, because we don't want to look at how rural America's gone to the wayside when there's a reason why there are so many Haitian immigrants in the Midwest, because they can't get anyone off of methamphetamine and fentanyl. All those people are gone. For the first time ever in American history, white living lifespan has actually gone down. So, and where do a lot of the white people live, man? In the rural parts of America. So this idea of the narrative that this is the Republican tagline of the shithole cities that Democrats run, and that they're completely out of control. And so how? Okay, all right.
But I do want to hear Bill real quick comment on this, since he had
The answer to why the supermajority Democrats have been able to make California better is because their policies suck. That's the bottom line. And money is not always the answer. A lot of it comes down to policy. Dr. Melina touched on something. I have not been a proponent of cash reparations. However, when I sit in the legislature that's handing out billions of dollars to illegal immigrants, to all kinds of communities, everything, and we have all American citizens who are homeless, struggling, and get decent health care, we always say there's no money for them. Yeah, I think there's a bigger conversation we need to have. We have to take care of our own communities and our own citizens, and I do think a lot of it comes down to policies, and the policies of the Democratic Party don't work because they just want to throw money at the problem. They don't actually want to have quality education. They want to give parents the power to choose where to spend the money on their kids for education. When it comes to housing, we have to look at we need more housing. We need to increase the supply. And a lot of the reasons we can't build more housing is because there is so much regulation, red tape, and process that prevents us from building more housing supply. So it's a much bigger conversation, but we can say the Democrats have been in charge for almost the last 2 decades. Have not been able to solve the problem. And so why would you keep re-electing them? I don't know.
Thank you, Bill.
So the next question we have for Dr. Abdullah and Kameron is a common criticism of. You guys want to respond to that one? Okay.
Well. Okay. I find it interesting. The brother here brought up Game of Thrones, all of that stuff. For those who haven't seen it, I'll summarize it. I saw the whole thing. It's different factions of the ruling class arguing with each other, fighting for that seat at the top. That is exactly what we see between the Democratic and Republican parties. Competing for who can tell the most lies to the most people, get the most people on their sides. When you watch that debate, who here watched the debate between Trump and Harris? Okay, a few. All right. Waltz and Vance. Who watched that one? Look, we see the same thing. They're up there competing for who is going to be the biggest warmonger against China. Even if you don't want war with Ukraine and Russia, the Republican Party is leading us into World War III fighting China. Okay? And I don't know about any of y'all, but what I have learned is that any type of war with a country anywhere harms the people here. Especially when now we're talking about nuclear war. These are ridiculous claims that are going to end up destroying a lot of people's lives. And frankly, it's insulting to hear a lot of this. The debate was frankly insulting because when people ask who won that debate, right? AIPAC won that debate. Wall Street won that debate. The Pentagon won that debate. And I'll tell you why. Yes, I'm going to bring up class politics because there's no other party that is willing to talk about it in terms of the working class and in terms of the rich, in terms of the elite. Because at the end of the day, yes, class must be talked about when 147 million people across this country struggle to make ends meet. When 27 million people in any day are hungry. That is absolutely a class distinction because then you got Blackstone, this huge real estate and investment company that owns tens of thousands of properties. While there are people who are struggling to afford rent in one home, struggling to afford rent. These are absolutely class questions. These are absolutely things where the working class has to unite, where we have to stand together when we have 500,000 people without homes across the country, right? When we have 28 homes for each person who is homeless. This is a systemic issue. It's one that neither the Democrats nor the Republicans are going to solve. They've had centuries to solve this issue. And in fact, I'll point out that the Republican Party itself began as a third party, right? We have to know this history. We have to understand that at the end of the day, when people come together, they're not just doing it for no reason. There are class interests behind the Democrat and Republican Party, and I believe if we have two for the corporate classes, we need at least one for the poor, for the oppressed, and for the workers.
Hey, well, sorry, Bill.
I want to have Dr. Willow respond and then we can get to it.
And yeah, we'll just do a quick follow.
I want to say something, because I think it's really important people understand this. You're not wrong about the system. I was a little naive, I'm not gonna lie, but this is my first term in office. You go up to Sacramento, the only people that we meet with, interact with, there are the corporate lobbyists. The corporate lobbyists run most legislatures and Congress. The problem is, that's our system of politics. The only way you can get elected is with a lot of money. And the only people willing to write you a check, I mean, this is what politicians do. We have a luncheon every quarter, and all these lobbyists show up and they give you $50,000, and that's it. So until you change the system of how people raise money and get elected, I think the corporate interest will continue to run both parties. You're not wrong about that.
Right.
I'm
right.
So I want to say a couple of things. One, you already knew me. So this idea of you might have voted for a third party if you knew Kameron before. I'm going to say you knew me before. So it's really important that we, I know that there's this narrative that both Bilal and I'm going to talk to you separately about going by Bill instead of Bilal and how that's, yeah. Yeah, but we have to be, and I'm not really playing because, I consciously named my children the names that they have. Tandiwe means the loving one, right? Amara is an Ethiopian legend of paradise. Amen means manifestation of the power of the universe, right? And I want us to understand the beauty of, I always, when I married my ex-husband, and we went with the name and took his name because I had a choice, right, of becoming Abdullah or not. And my mom tried to, because we got married in 2002, right? Remember what was happening and the backlash and oppression and no-fly lists created against Muslims. And my mother, who's African American, we're African American. We're from Texas, right? My mother was so afraid, and she was raised in the segregated South, and she said, don't take that name. They already targeting you because you're a black woman, right? But Abdullah means humble servant of God. How can I not take that name, right? So I'm not really playing Bilal, right? Really, I'm saying especially as a black Muslim, knowing what Bilal means, that it's important for us to assert our names and assert our identities. I don't want to be melted into their pot, right? So I'm going to offer to both Joe and Bilal that this idea of trying to change corporate-owned parties from within who said that, history is the best predictor? Who was that? That was probably you, Kameron. Right, yeah. But it is. History is the best predictor. And we know that most of the time, and Dr. Huey P. Newton said this, people enter into systems thinking they will change them. But most of the time, the system changes you, right? So we cannot be a part of a system like a Republican Party that advances both genocide and Muslim bans. And I don't care if you say that's not true. I know it's true, right? We all know it's true, right? Well, you can't incorporate yourself into a Democratic Party system that continue and go, well, everything except Palestine. Yeah, that's at least 100,000 dead people in this iteration of genocide. So what we say is we have the courage enough to say we can build something new that actually stands for our people. We can build something that is worth who we are. We can build that. And then I want to offer, because I hear my 20-year-old devoutly Muslim child whispering to me, she's on their study abroad semester in South Africa. And I do want to say one thing that I want to uplift from your points, that it's important that as Muslims, we embrace all of our ummah. Because my daughter, my child, Tandiwe Abdullah, who is a devout Muslim, is also queer, right? We cannot pretend as if there's not some reckoning that we have to come to and say, who are we as a community? We have to wrap our arms around all of our people, and we have to engage in really courageous conversations and not be afraid of what it means to progress. Progressivism means that we have to progress and move forward and figure out who we are and what it is God is trying to move through us.
So we do have a final question. Me and Amir are going to have closing remarks. So let's say your closing remarks, and then we're going to pass it on.
First of all, I'm so happy we're able to have a respectful and engaged dialogue like this. I think we need to do more of this and talk to and with each other as opposed to at each other. I really don't see enough of this in general, and I think there's a lot of good ideas that can be shared here. But my bottom line that I will reiterate is that, again, as the doctor said, and by the way, I'd love to connect with you at some point, nobody owns your vote. Do not be beholden to a political party. Make them earn your vote. And all I'm saying is that do not be afraid to at least look at the Republican Party or to challenge it or to engage with it as one of your many options. You have many options for an election. I agree there's no perfect political party. There are corporate interests. This system does not always work well. I'm happy to talk about that. If you know anything about me, you know I'm the least popular person in Sacramento on either side. And that's okay, because that to me is a badge that I'm not pleasing the powers of either corporate interests. And that's not what I went out there to do. And I really believe public service should not be a career. This is another thing. We have too many career politicians, okay? I had a job, I have a law practice, I do other things. I do not intend to be in politics for very long. Our founding fathers, George Washington, warned us about political parties, political faction. He warned us against them, and I think he was right. And they also did not want career politicians. They wanted normal people like me or you to go into government for a couple years, to make your impact and to lead and to go back into society and live under the rules and regulations that you've created for everyone else. So with that said, my message is vote against whatever party's in power. How about that? So thank you, and
That's both of y'all. Both of y'all.
Can I respond as someone from Virginia with George Washington? You know what I'm saying? Look, come on.
So, okay. Yeah. So Bill's gone. We appreciate him coming out. So our last question for you all, and then we'll also have closing remarks, is how do we hold civic leaders accountable? That is the biggest challenge, because we are struggling with accountability in our community. We're struggling with holding our elected officials accountable. We're struggling with holding our Muslim leaders accountable, and then holding anybody with power accountable. That's been what we have learned since October 7th, is that many people are doing things because they've been doing it for a very long time. But when you start asking questions, one of the most common responses I've seen from many Muslims in politics, heads of organizations, is that I've been doing this for a very long time. I know what I'm doing. That is not an answer. Why should I trust what you're doing? And when people start asking questions, they get frustrated. So, yep. So that's my question to all of you. You know, how do we hold them accountable? What is the right way to hold all the different types of leaders accountable?
Frankly, folks, I think there are some people in Congress, in the White House, in the Pentagon who can only be held accountable by sitting in a jail cell. And I say that. Let's start there. I think let's start there, because there are absolute war criminals, people who have enabled killer cops, killer soldiers, killer National Guard. And in fact, when we talk about Democratic-run cities and all these types of things, you know, it was many Democrat-run cities that sent the National Guard in at Trump's behest in 2020 because of a righteous rebellion against racism, against police brutality, against the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. Thousands and thousands of our martyrs have been lost. So I think, yes, part of accountability is that some of these people are absolute criminals. And you know what? The people who are put in jail for crimes of poverty, I think many of these people need to be released. I think we need to start with that type of perspective. What are our prisons for? If you can go out and kill 250,000 people in Afghanistan, if you can coordinate over 100,000 people being killed right now in Gaza, then I believe that's a crime. I believe that those are serious ones that need to be dealt with. And then for many of the others, I mean, I will just say abandon the two-party system. That is keeping them accountable. I'll tell you, look, there is a Congressional Black Caucus, but I'll tell you what, it has not achieved what it was put there for. You know, our people struggled, lost blood, lost time, lost sweat in order to get these seats. And we've had seats since Reconstruction, right? However, these two parties have failed us. We were the backbone of the Republican Party in its birth. Now we're the backbone of the Democratic Party. And when you have decades and decades to solve a problem, yet you can't do it, would you hire someone back who couldn't solve your problem across 50, 100 years? Then would you say, come on back? No. That's why we have to build an independent working class party. That's what we're doing with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And I must mention, we will be on the ballot here in California under the Peace and Freedom Party. We'll be there under the Peace and Freedom Party. So you will see the name Claudia de la Cruz right up there. And we are saying that you can vote with your conscience, vote with your heart. You don't have to hold your nose when you go in to vote. And you don't have to vote for the lesser of two evils. Vote for the greater good.
Okay, that's easy. Just
How do we keep politicians accountable? So,
Muslim leaders, civic leaders, organization leaders, all of them.
okay. So, first of all, look at who's profiteering. Look at their motives. Why are they there? The beauty about what I do is no one ain't paying me to. I never had a job in politics. I'm a teacher. I got no boss. I got. So why are people in the space? I think we're not. I mean, we're not supposed. I don't know if Islamically, I forgot. We're supposed to question people's intentions, but I forgot that rule. But Allah knows our intentions. That's right. But I think as people that we need to, because the consequences are too much, as to why are they there. Okay. So vote him out of damn office. As far as our own institutions and how we can control things, don't put the guy up there who's got a lot of money, who says nice speeches, who brings people like this into our community, who runs our own organizations. The Shura Council is one of our own organizations. Watch who our imams put into those positions of power, who's speaking, quote unquote, on behalf of the Muslim community. Okay, because I can see a hell of a lot of people in this room who should be speaking for our community. The fact that you're even here, taking your time on a Friday night, maybe away from your families. I know a few people brought their families, mashallah. You know, that's the cost right there. What are they doing? So that's how you hold them accountable. We should have control of our own organizations and bring the best people there who will uplift the communities. Other leaders, look at their track record. What have they done in their personal lives? What have they done for you? How do you know them? What associations do you have with them? Okay, I really believe that's how we can get, quote unquote, the best people in office that wherever maybe, whether it's your masjid, your PTA, your, soccer council, whatever it may be, and start broadening the definition of what it is to be a leader. Okay, we have small business leaders, inshallah, bigger business leaders right here. All of our sponsors, they are leaders. The fact that you are here means you're a leader. Okay, the fact that you're listening, disagreeing, not disagreeing with me, telling me that I should go to, Jahannam, whatever. I mean, whatever it is you want to, you're voicing your opinions. Okay, that's being a leader because you're being courageous. You're getting ahead of you're out here speaking your voice. That is leadership right there. Because I know it's not easy. Okay, our organizers who are in congressional offices telling the congressional representatives that you're killing our people, that's leadership. Holding up a sign at a corner. Shit, having LAPD not show up at an encampment at UCLA when they should have been there 2 hours ago, getting hit on the head with a stick in an encampment where everyone's peaceful and they found no weapons. That is leadership. People are putting their bodies on the line. Okay? I mean, I really think the leaders of our community are these brothers and sisters and non-binary people in our encampments on these campuses. They are the ones who inspire me. Okay, so that's all I got, and thank you for holding this forum, and I'm honored to be on this panel tonight.
Also known as Marcellus Williams, was executed by the state last Tuesday. And Kamala Harris, who built her career saying she opposed the death penalty, said nothing about the execution of this factually innocent Black Muslim man. When we talk about accountability, we have to talk about genocide, and we have to talk about genocide in Palestine, but also the genocide that's happening to Black people in this country. We have to hold her accountable for the murders of our people. That means she does not get our vote. She does not get our vote. She doesn't get our votes. Today is the birthday of Imam Jamil Al-Amin, also known as H. Rap Brown, who is a political prisoner right now, who's being held for his political beliefs and his commitment to Islam. And who's keeping him in prison? It's not only the Republican Party, it's the Democratic Party. How do we hold them accountable? Neither party gets our votes. Right here in Orange County, I have a dear friend that some of you may know. Her name is Dr. Tiffany Willoughby Herard. She's one of more than a dozen people who are being charged for praying in solidarity with Palestine. They were beaten. She's a professor at UC Irvine, brutally beaten, arrested, and is now being charged. She's being charged by an elected official that this county chose to elect as DA. He cannot have our vote. That's what accountability means. It means voting them out, and it also means calling them out, even when there's no election. It means showing up at their office. And I know some of y'all want to say, let's be civil. No, when you are killing our people, we speak up. We make them uncomfortable. We go wherever they are, and they do not get to live and walk and eat in peace until they do what's right. Accountability.
Arbaz, just wanted to say thank you for inviting me to be on the co-moderator today. I wanted to thank Muslim Visionaries again for this wonderful event. Can we get a round of applause for the panelists?
Sorry, I thought
Each
there
of you will
was
get
going
30
to be.
seconds to close. There you go. Go for it. Yeah, go ahead and start, Dr.
Okay. I just want to say thank you again for having us here. Thank you for calling us together. Thank you for the beautiful way that you were so honest, right? So honest. Really, really appreciate that. And we want to earn your vote and earn your solidarity. Please go to CornellWest2024.com, CornellWest2024.com. Read our policy pillars. I'm so proud of our policy pillars. And then if we earn your vote, please vote for us on November 5th or before November 5th. We are certified write-in candidates in California. So that means you actually have to write Cornell West on the ballot. That vote counts. We are running the largest write-in campaign in U.S. history. And so we need you to do that, to write in Cornell West on your ballot. When you get it, the ballots go out on Monday, so you can vote up until November 5th. And again, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, and power to the people. Folks, we need a new system. We definitely need a new society. And we need to end capitalism before it ends us. Look, if there's anyone who tells you these things are impossible or we can't achieve them, they either don't have your best interests in mind or maybe they need that confidence push from you. But that is what I encourage each and every one of us to do, is play that role of helping motivate somebody who needs it, who needs to understand that we have power when we band together. We don't have power when we separate, when we break apart movements. We have power if we build a strong, cohesive movement. And I want everyone to walk away from this not only thinking about who you're going to vote for, but also what type of system you want to see, what type of democracy you want. Do you want a democracy for the rich or a rich democracy? That's what we're saying, is that a rich democracy is one where you have some say in what you're paid at work. You have some say in how much your rent is. I think it should be capped at 10% of your income, maximum. You should have some say in having a union at every single workplace. That is what I call a democracy, because we need not only a political democracy, and we have a tortured one right now. This is not a full democracy, as intended by the founders, George Washington. So the Republicans gone. So this tortured form of democracy can be replaced with a real democracy for the people, that's made by the people. But the only way to do it is to stand together. We need a new constitution. I mean, I think anyone could get down with that, right? One that guarantees housing, healthcare, and education for all. One that guarantees the end of genocide and endless war. Folks, I believe we can do it. You can vote for Claudia and Karina through the Peace and Freedom Party. We will be on the ballot. Very exciting to see that. We'll also be on the ballot in 19 different states across the country, as well as 24 write-in. So please tell your friends, follow Vote Socialist 2024, and we'll see you in the streets.
Inshallah, write-in campaigns do work if it can work for Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. She won her Senate race that way. So I was... May everyone have their Neo moment. I'm talking about the Matrix. Cornell West was in, the wise counselor. The wise counselor. May you have your own awakening to try to change your own personal system, and then your awakening to change the system. Whatever that may be, wherever you may be, in whatever space you organize in. Okay, you already know who I'm voting for, and And if you don't agree with me, then alhamdulillah. If you agree, disagree, because I always say this: Islam is too big for any one person, place, or party to represent your interests. I do agree with that. There was disagreement with the Prophet, peace be upon him, when he was alive. Okay, so I mean, look at our 14, 14 and a half, 15, what year are we in? 14, 45, whatever it is. What's happened over, and the Prophet said we were going to have 67 different factions, wasn't it? When 76, thank you, I got it. I'm dyslexic, I get things messed up. And truly, thank you very much. I'll see you in the street. I do protest at rallies and for Palestine. I was one of those guys who unfurled that banner at the DNC. My sister Nadia Ahmad got hit in the head with a "Love Joe Biden" sign, which is ironic, and that's going through hopefully the court systems, inshallah. And may we all do what we can in the spaces that we live in and with the people who we love, and the people who we don't love.
All right.
We want to thank all of you all for coming out. We thank all of our panelists for sharing their thoughts, sharing their ideas, and really challenging the way we think. Malcolm X famously said that if you want to get people organized, you have to wake them up. In the last 12 months, we've woken up for the first time. Many of us, when you talk about Palestine, people were not even hearing about Palestine in elected offices. People weren't even visiting their Congress people, their senators, talking to them. We are doing 20 years worth of work in this 1 year. Not for anybody. We can't blame anybody else. We're the people to blame because we were asleep for too long. Our community was asleep politically on so many different levels. And this is an opportunity for us to wake up, get organized, do more than what's going to happen in November 5th, post-election, continuously build. And we're completely honored by each and every one of you for coming here and sharing. And I hope you all, benefit from today and you go back home feeling empowered about what route you can take.